Hello and very warm welcome to the Arise interview, 60 minutes of big questions about the big stories from the news and beyond with fresh insight and critical analysis. I am Christian Nogodo and thanks for joining us. Coming up in the next hour, across Africa, the coronavirus has heightened tension between faith and science. Some leaders have aligned their policies with medical experts advised to practice physical distancing to show the spread of the virus. But others have invoked religious ideology to confront the virus, assuring followers and devotees that faith offers adequate protection. And many suggest that government policies from a broader prism are making matters worse for the vulnerable in the society, and where they often find solace and succor, which is the religious body, is also bearing the brunt. So, how are religious bodies handling the drastic impact of the COVID-19 virus? What are the lessons to be learned from this virus? Is the Nigerian government properly responding to this health crisis? We'll speak to the outspoken, fearless, and one of Nigeria's leading social and civil rights crusader, the Most Reverend Bishop Mathew Kukah, in just a moment. At this point, COVID-19 has changed many aspects of our lives, including the way we practice religion. The way we used to converge can no longer be possible, at least for now. But as the virus continues to strike harder, Nigeria has developed stern measures to curb the virus spread. Also, we're starting to see religious groups make use of live streaming and making adjustments to long-standing traditions to help prevent and contain the spread of this coronavirus. But it is a truism that as the virus bites harder, as poverty deepens, economic resources dwindle, businesses crumble, every stratosphere is being affected one way or the other. Many opine that the Nigerian government is struggling to handle the health crisis because of the long negligence of the health sector and poor governance over a long period. Here is a cross-section of what Nigerians are saying after the first 5 weeks lockdown of strict confinement before it was eased.
A lot of people outside, but the road is free. A lot of people outside because people need to do their normal transaction. Meanwhile, because of the lockdown, there's no transaction. That's why the bank is filled up.
It was really a big loss for everybody, not even only us. And for us, we sell perishable goods here, so we need to open every day. So for it to lock down for weeks, then that's quite a big issue for us. But thank God for us reopening again. Everything will start buzzing, and we need to sanitize ourselves, keep ourselves safe, and we're sure God will help us and put everything down and end up coronavirus in Lagos and in Nigeria.
It's a big suffering. I suffer a lot. I cannot eat. There's no food. There's no money to buy food. So today I'm happy that they say we should come outside. They say we should close by 3 p.m. Yes. That's what they told us. The government said we should close by 3 p.m. So I'm happy that we are out today.
The main challenges today is that since morning that we open, there's no customers, and we see that because people have exhausted all the money they have, that's why everywhere is dry now. There's no customers. There's no customer that come to patronize us.
Well, for more on this, let's turn now to the very fearless, outspoken, and unquestionable, one of Nigeria's leading social and civil rights crusader, a defender of the downtrodden, the Most Reverend Bishop Mathew Kukah, Nigeria's Bishop of Sokoto Diocese, who is also the Episcopal Chair for the Commission, Mission, and Dialogue. He joins me now via Webex from Sokoto. Very warm and good evening to you, Bishop.
Thank you very much for having me. I hope you're well in Lagos.
Well, we are here live in Abuja here, and it's beautiful in the nation's capital. Okay.
News.
All right. Let me just fire
Otherwise,
what you may want to call the first salvo. Let's start with that, which has really engulfed the whole world globally, that has affected the way we live. How would you assess the response so far by the Nigerian government to this pandemic, COVID-19?
well, first of all, let me unequivocally thank our president and thank the members of the presidential task force for the extraordinary effort that they have committed to dealing with this very, very difficult problem, a problem that we had no rehearsals for, a problem that nobody would have ever dreamt about, a problem that even the most well-equipped, the most better structured or infrastructured societies have had tremendous difficulties dealing with. And then go on from there to say that, well, what we saw yesterday is what we are reaping, lack of preparedness for anything, our inability, unwillingness, lack of commitment to educating our people, our inability, weakness, and reluctance to make feeding our people a primary duty and responsibility, our inability and unwillingness to provide for the very basic things that make for development and good citizenry. So the confusion and the chaos that you find around us is largely a manifestation of the job that we did and did very poorly yesterday. And I'm talking of the years that have come and gone. So coping with this problem, the easy thing is to find whom to blame. But the reality of the situation is that I think, very frankly, we are in pretty good hands. We are learning by the day. This is not a time for us to let our guard down. We must cooperate very fully with all those who have been entrusted with the responsibility of dealing with this problem. I appreciate their eminent qualification, patriotism, and commitment. The least we can do as citizens is to continue to do the best we can in our little spaces. But this is a very, very difficult battle, a very difficult time for the history of the world and for the history of our country.
Well, yeah, a very difficult period for the world generally, but particularly for Nigeria. You talked about, the negligence of yesterday is what seems to be catching up with us here in Nigeria. Not that the personnel are not there, but you're worried with the state of the healthcare system. So what more would you be expecting from government? Or are you satisfied so far with what government, has been doing, the lockdown measures, the stimulus packages for both big and small businesses? And of course, some spirited Nigerians, even the body of Christ, too, making donations here and there. Bishop?
You will notice that I always tend to come from a slightly different perspective from what is popular. Namely, and I think I studied philosophy, and sometimes my argument is that the questions are more important than the answers. We must admit the fact that we have had 50 or more years of a wasted nation. We have wasted our energy, wasted our resources at levels that are totally unforgivable. We pretend that we're living in a democracy, but we're doing anything but imbibing the discipline of democracy. Ordinarily, we would have thought that countries living in a democracy, there are certain things we take for granted, but none of those things are manifested in our own society, such as, for example, evidence of development, measurable increase in the quality of life that people are living, a certain feeling of freedom and ability and capacity to operationalize your personal vision and, by extension, visions of your community. Evidence of a country growing together, energetically improving and working steadily to greatness. But what we have had in Nigeria is a country imploding with numbers, but unable to, unwilling to translate those numbers, into something useful. China has done that pretty well. India has done that very well. But at this very difficult time, we find ourselves falling apart in Nigeria, in part because clearly, as you can see, it is very difficult to think about summoning the country together, for any single cause. So yes, there are difficulties, and as you can see from the unruly behavior, our inability to walk the same path, the reluctance of ordinary citizens to comply by basic principles of survival, all of this is very closely related to what you will find in an environment where majority of the citizens are not educated. We have a country where, and you can see the prevalence of all these manifestations of indiscipline, the chaos that is cascading. You can see that it is happening in areas in this country that are conterminous with the areas of our lack of education, our lack of very clear discipline, because that is tied to our ability to communicate effectively and listen to the messages of government. You find that increasingly people are suggesting that maybe it is better for them to listen to their religious leaders than to listen to government. Well, we are again paying the price for the inability, the unwillingness of our country to create a truly secular democratic space in which the primacy of the state is very firmly established. You cannot live in a country where a government makes a law and people are worried whether their imam will accept this law or whether their pastor will accept this law, whether their bishop will accept this law. So again, this is largely because of the weakness of the institutions of the state, its inability and its lack of capacity to become a force for leadership and leading our people to greatness. So this is what we are seeing now, that we cannot even seem to agree. And today, few people have the temerity to say that they are questioning the reality of whether indeed, this pandemic is real or whether it is imagined. Again, it's the only people that can reason like this are people who are totally mentally ill-equipped to deal with the realities of life as we have in Nigeria. So really, as I said, we must buckle up and insist, that the policies made by government, that the quality of communication of the message of government is very much improved. I think that is an area that we're a bit lacking in. There's not a lot of effort is being made to effectively educate people and also try to persuade them, to go on the right course. And that is why we object very seriously to the idea of calling out the military or calling out the security agencies to punish people.
Okay, Bishop. Good place for you to have slapped the brakes there, because we want to take some messages. When we return, we'll be looking at governance in its totality. We'll be looking at religion and politics, how they've come to, stunt development in the country. You're still watching the Arise interview. We've got plenty more still ahead. Stay with us. You're welcome back to the Arise interview, and we have as our guest the Most Reverend Bishop Mathew Kukah. He's the Bishop of the Sokoto Diocese, and he's with us via WebEx. Okay, Bishop, I just want to quickly make a quotation from the homily at the funeral mass of the late seminarian Michael Nnadi. That was, of course, a very touchy moment for the body of Christ, not just the Catholics and the rest. And you couldn't, swallow your tongue, and you quoted very extensively the politics and religion, how they've become a mix, how they've put a lot of the northern children on the streets of Kano, Kaduna, Jigawa to Sokoto and the rest, depriving them of basic education that must have led to the growth of terrorists, bandits, kidnappers, people who are hopeless, homeless, no hope for tomorrow. What are your thoughts? Those are very caustic messages you sent to the authority. Bishop?
Well, thank you very much. I actually must tell you I was quite shocked by the way the sermon was received, and but also gratefully so. But I must tell you that religion and politics, that is my area of academic interest, religion, politics, and society. So when I say the things I say, they are based on, first of all, my conviction as a Christian, because I'm pretty clear about how a society ought to be. And Jesus says to me very clearly, I have come so that you may have life and have it to the full. So anything that impinges on the state's inability to make life better for the citizens under its care, not only does it irritate me, it summons me to question the state. So to answer your question, there's nothing here that I say that is new. The Emir of Kano, the former Emir of Kano, my good friend and brother, Lamido Sanusi, has paid the price. He has lost his throne. But that is also a statement of the level of preparedness that the northern oligarchy has in dealing with problems that it has generated by its inability to govern effectively and efficiently. No part of this country has produced, military or civilian, as many presidents or heads of state as northern Nigeria has done. The North still continues to insist that it wants to hold on to power at all costs. Yet it has lacked the capacity to translate this power into a meaningful and a useful impact on the lives of even its immediate constituency. Even the thieves who steal from other parts of the country behave in a much better way than the thieves from northern Nigeria. And they steal as much as everybody else. But everybody who steals, you can see evidence of most of the thieves in Nigeria. They have either built clinics, they have tarred roads, they have given children scholarship, they've built schools, they've done all kinds of things. But you cannot find in northern Nigeria, in 99% of the constituencies of the northern elite, any evidence that a thief who served in Abuja or elsewhere passed here. I call the northern elite, therefore, to account for why we have saddled the rest of Nigeria with this excess baggage. And for me, these are the issues. The tragedy is that the northern elite has used religion as a cover, much more than any other group of people in this country. And that religion is Islam. And the point I make is that by behaving in this way, the northern elite have deprived Islam of its nobility. Because nobody ever says, and the religion itself says so, whether it's the Holy Quran or the saying of, let's say, the founder of the caliphate, for example. Usman Danfodio said a society can live with unbelief. That it is conceivable that there are no believers in the society. But a society cannot live with injustice. And sadly, the northern elite that produced the Al-Majri are now the ones turning the Al-Majris into victims. So this is, it's a conversation for another day, but I think that what all this calls for is a clear questioning of the nature of the state that Nigerians want to live in, the nature of the future of the country that Nigerians want to live in. So for me, and these questions are many, and they are questions that we must continue to contest, because that is what governance is all about. And I think going forward, it raises the issue of who really has the capacity to govern Nigeria. What answers do they have to the problems that this country has? Because sadly, we've never been able to insist that people who want to govern this country have a minimum level of understanding of the dynamics of state and how states are designed. This is why we're ending up going from one violence to the other, going from one crisis to the other.
You see, you call the Nigerian elite thieves, whether in the north or in the south of Nigeria, but you've even adjudged that one seems better in terms of development of its people. Let me bring you how, some of your opponents would describe Bishop Kukah. Your words, choice of it, sometimes is seen as intemperate. Take, for example, the words nepotistic, narcissistic, and remember the way you described even the president to saying no one could have imagined that in winning, President Muhammadu Buhari would bring nepotism and clannishness into the military and the ancillary security agencies. Don't you find that very caustic? Because some people will say, I think with his eminent position, he can reach the leaders and rulers and tell them where they are making wrongs instead of making it public. Bishop?
Please, I am not, even the wife of the president who is married to him has had reason to say certain things that you think could have been said in the other room. It hasn't happened that way. I think that if you want to be honest, you yourself, ask yourself what is the meaning of nepotism, and ask yourself whether you think that baptizing the words by using other vocabulary says anything different. Are you telling me that you are living in this country, you are a journalist, and that you are not aware of the skewed nature of the appointments that we have in this country? Are you telling me that you are in this country, you are a journalist, a very well-informed one for that matter, and that the appointments of the security chiefs of this country, that we have ever had a time in this country where things are when things have been the way that they are? Well, I'm sorry. I don't. Maybe you and I see things slightly differently, and I think that somehow, if you would rather that the medicine is couched differently, well, say so. But I think the only thing that I think will make me respect the position you're saying is if the evidence leads you to a different conclusion. Because if you take what I said, you may not agree with the language. But a funeral is not a birthday party. Okay, we're having a burial, and if you read, whether it's the sermon whether it's at the burial of Caesar, or whether it's at the burial of John Kennedy, you are not living in normal situations. But to say that is not to say that there is anything I will take away. The question of language is a different matter altogether. You are romanticizing the issues, but whether you disagree with me, that is really the question, and whether the evidence leads you to a different conclusion, that is a different question. You may have the diplomatic nicety, to say things slightly differently, depending on where you stand. On the second point of saying, I have access to these people, let me give you an example, if I may just crave your indulgence. One day I said something when Obasanjo was in power, and I know you know very well, then as now, President Obasanjo and I can't talk about him as being my friend, but we have mutual respect for one another. I worked very closely with him. Now, but there was a day I met we were having coffee, and somebody said to me in the villa, I had just said something critical of the government. And somebody said to me, but you always come here, you can see the president. Why don't you come in private and have this conversation? I'm sorry, I'm not a private citizen, I'm a public citizen. And there are times that it becomes necessary for any leader, any leader with moral authority to lend his voice to the oppressed. And what I said to that gentleman, I said, ask President Obasanjo, when he was in prison and we went out and we challenged Abacha, didn't I know how to reach Abacha? I don't go for for political convenience. My interest and my constituency is this country. And a lot of politicians will come and they will go. And I've gotten very used to the fact of those praising me today being the ones to attack me tomorrow. I can live with that. As long as we are struggling about how to make this country a better society, if you want to keep my mouth shut, govern well, govern effectively, do the things you said you are going to do. For me, it's as simple and straightforward as that. It's not a conference about table manners or manners of talk. I think even my worst enemy will concede that I have never deliberately attempted to disrespect anybody in the things I have to say and how I've had to say them. But as to things that make me angry, and they happen once in a while, I will try and be as restrained as possible, but I don't think that you can quarrel with the evidence that I presented in that sermon.
Very well, Bishop. I am not quarreling with any evidence you presented. I'm only quoting what you said. And I said some critics, not my own opinion. But we'll take another short break. When we return, we'll continue the discussions along leadership, the led and the leaders, and, you know, looking at the mix for development too. Stay with us. You're welcome back to the Arise interview with me, Christian Ogodo. We're live in the nation's capital, Abuja. And of course, we still have as our guest, the Most Reverend Bishop Mathew Kukah. I forgot that middle name. And he's the Bishop of Sokoto Diocese, and he's writing Sokoto there on WebEx. Bishop, let me ask you this, because so much for the elites who have misgoverned in the last 60 years and who probably have taken the impoverishment of the people as a blindness of their own short-sightedness to stand up for their rights, the led and the leadership. We can't be talking of a conspiracy theory here. Is it an issue of poverty that they don't know their left from their right again? Bishop?
Well, you know, you were a bit worried. Please just call me Bishop Kukah. That's good enough, or Father Kukah, as it is generally the case. I'm fine with that. You know, you were trying to argue or worry about what I said about people in public office and the attitude towards state resources. Well, I would like to know from you whether you know of anybody who has held office in Nigeria, minister, governor, or whatever, who is back living in their villages as farmers and so on and so forth. You have to tell me why everybody who has left government in Nigeria is now living in Abuja, and whether people who are living in Abuja are living on their salary. So please, let's get it straight. We know that nobody has ever contested election, will ever contest election in Nigeria with money from their pocket or money from their businesses. So get ready for it. We're going to be in these convoluted waters for a very, very long time. We will swim or we will drown unless we address those concrete issues. But to come back to the point, what you're talking about is really about elite behavior. Now, when you talk about the people not knowing their left from their right, should we not be ashamed of ourselves that after all these years of independence, there is no state in Nigeria that can boast of the fact that all of its citizens are sufficiently literate, that there is no state in Nigeria with all the resources available that can boast of the fact that its citizens can conveniently feed, and they have taken the matters of health for granted. We have all kinds of humongous structures littered across the country, largely hospitals and classrooms. When people worry about education, we think that by building classrooms, we are showing passion for education. Or we think that by building hospitals, we are showing our passion and commitment, to medical services. It never really is the case. So the critical question is for us to come back to the table. What is governance supposed to be? Those who are governing us are holding our resources in trust. All we can see is an improvement, a quantitative improvement, an outrageously quantitative improvement in the quality of their own lives and the lives of their immediate relations, and the diminishing levels of our own community existence. So increasingly, how would we sit here in Nigeria and say that with all our resources, with all our expertise, that we will shamelessly now become the poverty capital of the world? And you think that I should not be angry, that you will not be angry? I always tell people I'm a very privileged Nigerian, very privileged. So if I were thinking only of my welfare, I will not have a problem, because by the grace of God, I probably will never go to bed hungry. I have people who are serving me. I've got a driver at my beck and call. I've got somebody who cooks for me. My parishioners are making sacrifices by the day. Even those who can't send their children to school are ready to make the sacrifices despite my level of comfort. I can pick up my phone and call any of the big people in Nigeria. They will answer me. So it's not about friendship. It's not about friendship. It is about our common humanity. And it is the fact that we cannot use, nobody can claim to be a real Muslim, a real Christian who hopes to stand before God and render account and see the kind of criminal poverty that is going on in this country and the criminal injustice, and we say that we simply should go to our churches or mosques and pray. It is, for me, one of the most irresponsible things we can ever say. And this is why I keep saying to my brothers in the north that one of the things they've done, the elites have done, is that they've done a great disservice to the religion. Okay, they've done a great disservice to the religion, because in the name of religion, in the name of Islam, most of our northern politicians have used religion to mobilize their people. Now, those who use ethnicity at least leave a legacy. But we have used religion to mobilize our people, and those who are prepared to kill and to die to get us elected are the ones who are now, becoming liabilities. And you could not have a greater metaphor than the predicament of the Almajiris. It's only yesterday that Fulanis were running across this country. Today, it is the Almajiris. So why must we? I'm a northerner. So why must we be the ones to offer Nigeria the most negative posters, in this country? So for me, these are the things that are worrying. The political elite has refused, is unwilling, is unable to do the things that other people have come to take for granted. And the result is that governance has become a platform for self-enrichment. And I said, this is unacceptable, because we are now in very difficult times. And if we don't handle these things well, in the last 20 years, over 100 countries have had revolutions. And even the best of us are saying nobody knows what can trigger off a revolution, whether it's in Nigeria or anywhere else. Nobody wants that. But if the only antidote to that is not moralizing, the only antidote to that is good governance, to offer people something that makes tomorrow something they can look forward to. So far, if I ask the average Nigerian on the street, do they expect that their life will be better next year? Very few Nigerians will tell you yes. And we can't live in a country like that.
Yes, Bishop Kukah, you seem to have chosen evolution to revolution. In fact, you fear for a revolution with the way the country is going, with the way development is so slow, with the wide disparity in the distribution of the nation's wealth. And you seem to have been showing some practical example in your diocese, the Sokoto Catholic Diocese, where you take, in fact, you once said you're overwhelmed with the children that you're training in the Catholic schools there. And only just recently again, you donated something like hotel rooms or some residents to the government. The media said it's hotel room. And the question, what is Father Kukah or Bishop Kukah doing with hotels? I would say it must be lodges when, either seminarians or visitors come and the rest, some small lodges. You want to tell us more about your educational prosperity for the northern people in your diocese?
Look, my brother, if I took you to my village and you see where I've come from, you will be shocked. And this is why I remain relentless and restless in ensuring that in the best way that we can, children get education. Now, I have a small scholarship fund, and it will interest you to know that I have a few Fulani children who have benefited from my scholarship. In fact, what I try to do with the scholarship is to tell them, I'm not interested. I don't want to know the beneficiaries from the scholarship. In fact, it was when one of the Fulani children came to Usman Danfodio University that he actually came to me to tell me that he was a beneficiary of my scholarship. So when I hear people tell me, and some of my northern elite, when it is convenient for them, they say, oh, you don't like the North, you don't like religion, you don't like Fulanis. I say, okay, I don't like Fulani. You that like the Fulani and you that is Fulani, can you show me, if you love your Fulani, will they be going around, will they be roaming the streets of Nigeria? Will your children be going where they are going? We started, for example, a project, a noble project with with Cardinal Onaikan, Archbishop Kaigama, the former Emir of Kano, when we went to Rome for a meeting. And the idea was for us to introduce digital education to children in northern Nigeria. The basis of this project was that the man who was the initiator of this project said that he went to the Holy Father and told the Holy Father that he had money and wanted to give the Holy Father money to commit to any charity of his choice. Instead of Pope Francis saying, please give me this money, send some of it to Bishop Kukah, and send some of it to my bishops who are in other countries, let them build churches, fill the place, flood everywhere with churches. The Pope said, no, please commit your money to children. My concern is children who are on the streets, not even Christian children, but children around the world. We took that argument, I took that idea of children on the street to say, look, and I confided with the Emir of Kano. I said, look, our Almajiris fit into this project. We came, it's a long story, but to cut a long story short, it is that program has literally been scuttled by prejudice, and people saying, oh, Bishop Kukah is taking our children, he's going to turn them into Christians. Well, I believe that, frankly, in my view, it is better to be any other religion and be educated than to have a religion and have no education. Because we have a clear evidence that people have invested heavily, okay, in keeping others in poverty and in illiteracy. And this is why northern Nigeria remains so combustible. This is why for the last 30 years, it was our churches that were being burnt. Nobody imagined that this system will turn on itself the way it has done now. So for me, it's these things are not complicated. I believe that in this coronavirus situation that we're in, we just finished building a pastoral center in Sokoto for our meetings. And if you're ever in Sokoto, please welcome. Arise Television can come and hire the place. They will pay us for it. But I thought that we finished the structure. We are not going to use it now. Nothing is happening. We have a small health facility. I said, well, I wrote a letter to the governor, and I said to the governor, I pray that you will not need these facilities. But should the need ever arise, please, we are here. Sokoto is my home. I am not, if I die, this is where I will be buried. I've taken it as my home. So the governor has, in fact, today, the commissioner of education, the commissioner of health was just at our small health center. We have a small health center. We also have schools in Sokoto. And like I keep telling my Muslim brothers, if it was just for the Christians in Sokoto diocese, which is Katsina, Kebbi, Zamfara, and Sokoto itself, I will not need to build schools because my parishioners value education. If I don't have a school, they will send their children, home or elsewhere. But I'm saying let us hold hands together and see how best we can educate, because without an educated populace, with all our resources, this country will continue to sink.
Absolutely, absolutely, Bishop Kukah. We'll come back to you again for the last quarter of the Arise interview, but we're going on a short break. When we return, we'll be interrogating more issues as they affect Nigeria. Stay with us. You're welcome back to the Arise interview, and as they have Bishop Mathew Kukah. Bishop, the youth of Nigeria, they seem to have been left behind, not because they are not creative, not because they are not industrious, not because they are not focused, but they just have this sense of abandonment, a sense of bewilderness, a sense that is so forlorn that they don't even dream of a tomorrow that is beautiful to them. Look, let me quote again what I've come to describe as a treatise from your homily, which is a great study. You said, for us Christians, it would seem safe to say that we are all marked men and women today, yet we must be ready to be washed in the blood of the Lamb. The testimony of the Dapchi girl above, you talked about that one, and you went on to talk about Leah Shiraibu. You talked about the matter of the faith, and I want to put all that in context to represent the average Nigerian youth. Are they a forgotten lot? Are they the forlornness cannot be reversed? How can they get their country back again? Bishop?
Thank you very much. First of all, you keep going on break to take adverts for which you are paid for. Please, can you tell Dukao Begbana, okay, he's my good friend, that he should please consider sending palliatives to Sokoto, at least tight from these breaks that you are taking and the money you are making. for the next 1 hour. Please, I will hold you responsible for that. Okay,
right.
let me come back to your question. Look, I think the youth actually feel sorry for you. It's not the other way around. I interact with young people in this country. I am amazed at their incredible capacity. I'm sure you know yourself that your 5-year-old daughter or son manipulates your phone far better than yourself. Now, I think the real challenge is whether these young people can get beyond the dubious scaffolding that has been erected by this semi-feudal system that we are running and going nowhere, that we call democracy. And I think that, first of all, the most important thing for young people to do is that sooner than later, the way the technology is going, whether we like it or not, whether 5G will be here or whatever is going to happen, it is becoming increasingly clear that those who have survived by holding on to power and holding on to what they call the choicest position and holding on to what they call the choicest ministries, because when they make appointments in Nigeria, you measure the relevance of ministers by the kind of position they are holding. That's why Igbos, Yorubas, Muslim, everybody is concerned with making sure they don't get a yeye ministry. Now, what am I saying? Is that increasingly in the next few years, we are going to jump over this dubious wall of feudalism that has held us down. The next world that is becoming very clear and is right here with us is a world that has limitless frontiers for those who have the capacity to dream and to imagine. The tragedy with Nigeria is that we have erected this huge wall that has made it even impossible for people to have a different vision about a society. And this is why, to get back to the point you're making about Michael, now last week, my young seminarian who was killed, last week you saw the interview, and I really commend the police force. I had the good luck of speaking to the Inspector General of Police, a man who has come with completely different set of credentials, that when we got the news that this young man who kidnapped Michael and killed him had been arrested, they brought them to the seminary with the wife of my friend, Dr. Ataga. Now, for me, these two people now, both of them are Catholics. They are, in our martyrology, literally set for sainthood, because Michael was killed on the grounds that he continued. This young man is only 18 years old, but he was just in his first year in the seminary. He had not even made much progress, but he had the courage to look at a man or men with guns and say to them, change your life. If you don't change your life, it will not end up well for you. And they said they had to kill him because they got tired of him telling them, speaking in such a tone. Now, of course, they said to him, don't you know that we are a different religion? Of course, those people have come from a background in which, who are you to challenge the basis of our religion? And yet, the future is about the capacity to interrogate. It's about inquiry. And this is why I feel sad about Nigeria, that this country and the intellectual class must rescue this country from the tragic end it will likely come to if we don't pull back and begin to think, rather than who your father is, what your village is, who is behind you, as you hear when the recruitments are going on in Nigeria's public service. People are thinking about who is sponsoring you, not what is sponsoring you. So the future belongs to those who have knowledge. It's a knowledge economy. The Vice President has spoken most eloquently about these issues. Evidence that we need to move in that direction. So I can only encourage the youth of today to hold on to a vision. A better society is possible. The young people of today, yes, it sounds a bit pedestrian to say they are the leaders of tomorrow, but the template of leadership is changing and changing very fast. So for me, it's for the young people to hold on to their dream. I think that this monstrosity that we have is gradually going to come to an end. And thank God, if we manage to survive COVID, governance will be different. A lot of things are going to be different. And I think that assaulting the barricade of this dubious structure we call Nigeria that has refused to work, even for those who run it, we have to find a way of dismantling. And I'm not talking here in any physical terms of breaking down the country, but mentally we have to dismantle the structure that we have so it can deliver services to the majority of the citizens of Nigeria. Because the system cannot redeem itself, it cannot redeem the country.
the redemption for the country, some people say very quickly, that is to restructure, physical restructuring of Nigeria into different geopolitical zones. Do you think that will solve the problem in this country?
Look, there are no silver bullets anywhere. Nothing is ever, things don't more or less explain themselves like that. But whether we like it or not, everybody, the North that has held on to power has found that this is not working. The military held on to power. The military discovered it has hemorrhaged so badly. Every group that has tried to monopolize power in this way and manner has come up short. So clearly, we have to have the courage to accept that this system is not working. Now, whether you talk about what is the word, restructuring, which has become, we are monosyllabic in this country. We just want to use single phrases and we think they explain everything. I don't know what it is, but whatever it is, we are saying we don't want what is now. Whether you call it restructuring or so, like we say in Nigeria, you go to a doctor and you say, doctor, I'm feeling one kind. When you say to a doctor, you are feeling one kind, well, his interviews will help you to explain what one kind is. So the truth of the matter is that for those who hold Nigeria hostage, we are feeling one kind. So you better sit down and let's talk about how we will resolve this problem, because the country is not working. It is not working for you. It's not working for us. And the only way we can move forward is to agree on an aggregate of values that we can all take home and feel very courageous about. We want a country where we can live freely, happily, as Muslims, as men, as women, as young people, as old people, where these labels will not become instruments of war, as it is in Nigeria, where it makes a difference. Your fortunes depend on whether you are Christian, Muslim, ethnic, male or female or what. We can't live in a country like this, because that's not where the world is going.
And one aggregation, I think we have just barely 2 minutes, Bishop, but two things I'll quickly ask you. The church may not be the same again, at least for now. Tithing is a huge income, that the church uses to do a lot of its charity works and the rest. And today, coronavirus is kept that in abeyance. And two, one of the aggregations you talk about restructuring. Do you believe in state police or community police? Very quickly, Bishop.
Well, let me reverse the argument. When you talk about state police, desirable as it is from where I am, and given what I've seen in places like Kano, where it matters, where just being a Christian matters for me in northern Nigeria, because there are many states in northern Nigeria where you cannot enter the bureaucracy because you are a Christian. Now, I don't know whether, if you are calling by the names that they give to these security agencies as what we already see in Kano, I've always asked the question, if you set up this police force and they are just Islamic morality police, can I, as a citizen of Kano, an indigene of Kano, who is a Christian, can I join?
Absolutely. Very warm appreciation. You are an interviewer's delight any day, anytime, and we're really glad for you to have been on the Arise interview. Thanks for coming on the program, Bishop Mathew.
Thank you very much. Thank you. But please, I'll hold you responsible. We'll talk during the week, and I'll speak to Nduka to make sure that you have spoken with him. Thank you very much. And
all right. Safe. Well, Bishop Mathew Kukah of the Sokoto Diocese has been our guest on the Rise interview. And that's it for this edition of the program. Do join us again for another edition. And from me and the entire team here in Abuja, goodbye and thanks for watching.